Yeah, I made a bit of a boo-boo on my MRR2 Project Railroad. So today, I'm gonna fix it. So you may remember that I did not paint or weather my road when I installed it. This is because I had planned on blending it in with the scenery as I was going along. Well, that wasn't the best idea. And if you want to watch that video, I'll post it at the end. But by the time that I realized this, it was too late. I still needed to get the road colored, and I wanted to paint it with the technique that I've gotten quite good at, which is using spray paint. But this was going to pose a real challenge because, the road was already glued in place. Now, to be 100% clear, this is not the best way to do this in terms of painting your road or anything like that. You want to do it beforehand. The best way would have been to pre-spray paint everything. But if you've already done this or you need to make a change on your layout, I want to show you how I did it so you can know that there is a way to do it. So here is how I fixed my screw up. First of all, I had not installed the sidewalks. Thank goodness, because this would have been a whole lot harder that way. So I went ahead and got my sidewalk pieces and started cutting them to size, as well as some 0.04-inch styrene that is going to serve as the base for the two buildings that are going to go in my little town scene right here. This is my first time using these Walthers kits overall, and I just want to say that they've been a relative breeze to work with. They're not sponsoring this. They've just been really, really good. I used my rotary tool to cut the sidewalk edges and just some simple heavy-duty shears to cut the styrene to size. I wasn't having to do anything absolutely perfect. I just needed it to fit to the edge of the layout. Now, it's time to start painting. First thing I did was I grabbed some painter's tape and began sealing off the edges of the road and crossing. I then grabbed a garbage bag, I ripped it in half so that I had basically an impromptu drop cloth, and I took it and kind of worked it around the edges where I had taped for getting the edges, and then taped the garbage bag to that painter's tape, and that held it in place. This little note here that it was a lot easier to use some wider painter's tape for this because it gave me a little bit more flexibility with it. So I wanted to start with my chalkboard gray color paint. This is like my favorite color for doing concrete in terms of spray paint, and I just did a few brief bursts across the road. Don't worry about getting it on the tracks if you're doing this. We're going to get to that in a minute, but have some water ready and a micro brush or a similar tool. Next, I use some matte black spray paint with the same technique. I use 2-in-1 spray paint and primer, which works pretty well. The random bursts of paint that I give the road give it a more weathered and textured look that just looks overall more realistic, and it's a pretty easy way to achieve this realistic look, and it's really, really great, and it's served me really well over several road projects. To clean the rails, I did it as soon as I was done painting, and I used a micro brush with some water to wipe off as much paint off the rails as I could. If that doesn't work, some sort of scraping tool can be used to remove the paint. Think about like a hobby knife or something like that. I actually used a flathead screwdriver, and it worked pretty well. Now, while that paint was drying, I went ahead and went to paint the sidewalks and the styrene bases for the buildings using a similar technique, except for the fact that I'm spraying them before I'm putting them in place, like a smart person. The main difference here is I use more of the gray on the sidewalks with just a touch of black, and then for the bases, I just did the exact same thing that I did for the roads because I want it to look like it's just asphalt with a little bit of curb in between it. Once everything was dry, I can start to glue everything in place, and I used a gel-based super glue for this. If you're gluing plastic on plastic, you can use something like plastic cement, but I'm doing plastic on wood, so this gel-based super glue was a great choice. I'll link it below. I then drill some holes for building lights. The smaller of these two buildings is actually the one that I did the custom random light project with Arduinos on there, so I can link that at the end as well, so you can check that out. And the larger of the two buildings is actually one that I built for a series on Trainmasters TV, and I will link Trainmasters TV in the description below. Once that is dry, I can put the base scenery in and around what I glued on. This includes some extra ballast around the track and also the scenic areas leading from the industry to the town. I can finally complete those and get everything linked up. With all of that, my base scenery is complete. The base layer that I'm going to put everything on there, and all that's left on MRR2 is the detailing in terms of scenery. You can see that it's really starting to look like a little switching layout now. Detailing to me is one of the really fun parts, and I cannot wait to show you guys how I do that on here because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out those videos right here. And until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, and happy railroading.